Hi, Facebook friends, TGIF. It is Friday. And if you were like me, you had a few days off last week and you came back this week, and it was a long week, 5 days and lots of catch up. But fortunately for us, and fortunately for YWTV, we are ending on a kind of wonderful place to wrap up the week and give us some great ideas about things we can do over the weekend, like staying organized, because our lives are very busy, and when things are in disarray, it creates a lot of issues. And so it's nice to be able to have things tidy. And so in order for us to get some tips and kind of maximize your space and helping you get organized, we have invited Tidy Tova to spend time with us today.
Hi, everyone.
Tova. So let me tell you all a little bit about Tova. Tova Weinstock is a professional organizer and owner of Tidy Tova, which I love the name. She specializes in decluttering, organizing, space maximization, and moving. She's been recognized by the New York Times, by Oprah.com, by Glamour Magazine, HGTV, and more. And she works under the premise of what we know, that research shows that there's many benefits to there's many benefits to our health and to our lives when things in our life are neatly placed where they should be and organized. From a stress relief perspective, the endless list of things to do constantly looming over our head is often the source of stress. We may not realize it, but clutter in our bedroom forces us, it does actually impact our ability to have a good night's sleep. When you're so busy dealing with the mess around you, it takes a lot of your time, and who wouldn't want a little bit more me time by having things organized and getting some of that time back? It really does create a healthier lifestyle. And for sure, when it comes to being organized around your family or your work, you're much more productive when things are in order. So this is a really important conversation, because these are all things that we should all be striving for. And what a better way to start the year with talking about this conversation. So Tova, tell us what inspired you to start this business. This is one of these wonderful skill sets.
Yeah.
How did you take this and then turn it into a business for yourself?
So it's something I've literally been doing since I was a kid. I would literally go to my friends for play dates and be like, "Can we empty out your closet and get rid of stuff and put everything back?" So it's definitely in my blood. My dad is quite organized, and just something I really always enjoyed doing. I used to do it with my sister, and it kind of happened really organically. I was actually, after college, going back for a second degree. I was at FIT in the city getting a degree in fashion, and I just needed to start working during the day. So this is what I was doing, just for money, going to school at night. And then after a year of helping people in this way, I was just like, screw fashion. I don't want to bring more into the world. I really believe in less. And I was just, thinking about how much I love doing this. And then I made it official, and it has snowballed, and I really love it, and I'm passionate about it. And my love has only grown in the last 8 years, whatever it's been.
That's amazing. And it's wonderful. It's a wonderful inspirational story for our viewers to hear about taking your kind of passion and your inclination and being able to transfer that into a place of being able to make a living. Because we do know that, as they always say, if you're doing something that you love, you'll never really feel like you've worked a day in your life.
Yeah.
That's the saying. And so you're a wonderful living depiction of that. Mm. So this time of COVID that we've been living in, I know as I've been watching my friends on social media and talking with them, cleaning has been one of those things that a lot of people have been drawn to do.
Yeah.
It seems like this is the right time, for your business. And I also know that this is also a time where you rolled out a virtual version of your business. Can you talk a little bit about both those things? Why we think this happened now, and how it kind of helped propel you into your virtual organizing business?
I mean, I think one of the main reasons that people are so eager to tidy their spaces right now is because we spend so much time at home, And like you're sitting there trying to do work and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe my bookshelf looks like that. And oh my God, I can't believe that pile is right there. So people are definitely, you know, more aware of their surroundings, and you want to really feel good in your space and you don't want to be distracted by the mess. So I think that's like the COVID thing. And for the first couple of months, honestly, I was just like, you know, business completely halted for me. No one was going out of their houses. And I wasn't compelled to do virtual right away. I was just like, my job is so physical. I really have to be there. And then I realized that, you know, times are shifting and you really have to like get with the program. So I was like, you know what? And a few people actually asked me also. So I was like, I'm going to try it. Like, let me roll this out. I got a bunch of virtual clients, like, you know, people I had worked with or some new people. And now it's like a service I offer, and I could, you know, technically work with anybody all over the globe, which is something that never ever would have happened if not for COVID. So that kind of has been like a silver lining for me. And I also started doing some programming. Like I did a few talks for, you know, this group of women in Florida and that group in Westchester, whatever it is, just all these different people. I actually also gave a 5-week course to people in Israel, that part of Microsoft. So all these things were, you know, experiences I never would have had if not for the crazy times we're living in. So that's been really great for my business and very interesting. But I also really missed being in people's homes. So, you know, it's a trade-off.
Well, I can imagine that it felt different, you know, to make that shift into doing virtual. But my goodness, it really, you know, that has been one of the really interesting things about this time, how people did kind of get pushed to look at their businesses differently. And then there were positives to it for sure. So do you think when life goes back to the way that we historically were, that you'll still keep some aspect of a virtual business in your?
Yeah, totally.
It's a keeper.
Also, like, you know, consultations particularly was always challenging to like, it usually takes an hour to get there, and then the consultation's an hour, and then an hour to get back home. That's totally inefficient. So if I could do those virtually, you know, I save a lot of time.
Yeah.
So it's great.
That's wonderful. So can you walk us through what you normally do for a client? You know, what that client relationship, when you hire an organizer, what does that mean? What does the person do? And it sounds like obviously you do something different when you're in their house. But obviously it sounds like you're just as impactful virtually. So can you talk us through what that's like?
Yeah, I mean, every client and every client's needs are so different, but generally someone reaches out to me because they feel like, you know, they're just not in control of their surroundings. I would say that's like the common theme. Like, I have too much stuff. I never know where my stuff is. It's not streamlined. A lot of my clients are in Brooklyn and New York City. So, you know, it's the like too much stuff, too little space problem. So basically work with people to systematically go through their belongings, get rid of the things that aren't serving them, and then create organized systems for what remains. So the theory is that, you know, once things are at that organized baseline, then they can maintain it. And, you know, you don't have to have that frustrating relationship with your belongings, which truly upsets me on a deep level, is that like, you know, people just feel that loss of control.
Yeah.
And like their belongings are here and they're here when the relationship is really supposed to be like this. So I kind of help people get back to that like place of power over their belongings.
So it sounds like that a lot of your work, although, you know, you were describing it as physical, that there's a lot of like mental and psychological piece to your work, because I would imagine, and just thinking about myself and the things that I've held on to versus the things that I've gotten rid of, there's a sentimental connection to the stuff, you know, often, not always, but often, that you keep around. But do you really need it? You know, and so kind of maybe helping people through that process. What's that like?
Yeah, I studied psychology in college and was like, I don't want to deal with people's emotions. And now I like so much deal with people's emotions, but in a way that I'm not like aware. And it's kind of just very natural for me. But yeah, I mean, I think when you are working with an organizer or going through this process, you really do start like thinking about your belongings differently. And that's one of my main goals, is not to just like help that woman in her kitchen, but to get people to really think about that relationship differently and kind of, you know, challenge it a little bit. Like, why do I have such an attachment, or why do I love buying things? Like, what feeling am I getting out of that? Do I really, am I chasing something? Or, like there is something I think really deep about belongings. And I think it could be really powerful to take a step back and, kind of come to a comfortable place of like, you know what, I can be okay without this stuff, or I can be okay not buying things and not having that like moment of euphoria that you get, whatever happens. I think there's like some dopamine something that happens when you, so yeah, just overall, challenging people in that way. And again, to think about that control and just, not just like, oh, I own tons of stuff, but it's more like, why do I own these things? And what are they bringing me in? What are the things that I've had for so long? Maybe they're actually weighing me down and I'm afraid to let go of them. And once I do that, I'll feel liberated, and like kind of empowering people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when we were introducing you and talked a little bit about, the various ways that people bring you into their lives. So, it sounds like it's one, just helping people be more comfortable in their current space. But then there's also that you help people when they're moving, and kind of that process. Can you talk about the difference between those two experiences? Because I'm guessing they are a little different from your perspective.
Yeah, I would say moves are more just like straightforward, less of the psychology and deepness in a way. Moves are super overwhelming. I think people really want to start with an organized baseline and have systems put into place. So that's why, making sure that's where you start off could be really valuable. As opposed to, I've lived in this space for 30 years. There's so much stuff that's not serving me. Like, let's help get rid of that stuff, and kind of like rethink my space. So yeah, I mean, with moving though, also I usually tell people like we should do purging beforehand, so you're not moving with things you don't need. So there is some overlap in that way. But even when it comes down to moving, like I generally work with my clients, and with moves, I could be like, I don't need you. Like I can unpack your kitchen mostly without you. So in that way, it's kind of in a way less personal, but obviously, unpacking their kitchen in a way that makes sense to them. But they don't need to be so in it.
Yeah, we recently had a guest on YWTV who just in the course of the conversation, which was nothing about what we're talking about, she mentioned, I'm just thinking about her as we're talking, she mentioned how she's lived in the same house with her children, who all three of them were grown now and out of the house. And, it was like, 4 or 5 bedroom, large house. And that she and her husband were scaling down to like a 2-bedroom condo. And that, obviously they couldn't take everything, with them. So I can imagine that's definitely a good time to employ an organizer to work with you, because I remember her talking about it and couldn't even imagine like scaling down to such a small space from having so much.
Yeah. My dad did that a couple of years ago, and it was a huge job. I've worked with a bunch of empty nesters, and there are organizers that literally like specialize in that, for like the elderly going to, assisted living, which is different than what you're saying, but definitely that's a big thing. And that could be really hard because, she grew up in this home, raised her kids in this home, and now her whole life is different, which is, very emotional and also challenging to downsize like that.
And, I, like you, as you've been saying, believe that, we are a world of too much stuff, right? And we are also beings that have been socialized to collect more stuff. And, you drive out on the highways and you see these space storage rental places, or these pods that people like drop into their backyards for the overflow. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, I know it's that seems like it's just literally busting out of the seams as opposed to doing the work,
Yeah. I really dislike offsite storage. Like I just find that to be a black hole. There are obvious, exceptions to the rule, but I really, really believe that you shouldn't own more than your space allows for. Because again, then that relationship gets off balance and you're just battling your drawers because they're overstuffed and you can't put your clothing away because it doesn't have a space. And then it's just not a pleasant, calm way to live in your space.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like maybe your dad downsized and had beautiful furniture and you want to store it for a few years for your future home. Like I get it. There are reasons to have offsite storage, but I think just like owning tons of stuff and then putting it away, that kind of breaks my heart a little bit. So, yeah.
And I'm curious too. I mean, we always are so, I'm a mom of 7-year-old twins, and there's so many lessons in parenthood, right, that you're giving your kids. Do you ever work with kids? I mean, I feel like this is one of those like life lessons that would be good to learn young and grow up knowing, whereas probably not one that we ever really think to teach them as we're talking, I'm thinking about, but it would serve them well in life.
Yeah, I have worked with kids. My youngest client was 6. I was obviously working with her mom, and then I was going through like her artwork with her, and she was deciding what she wanted to keep and what she wanted to get rid of. And I actually have twin stepchildren that are 7, so similar. And I always tell this story that we have them basically like every other weekend. So Aiden, my stepson, once came with this like stupid plastic toy, and is like, this like random toy. And after he left, I got rid of it. It was like on the floor of the car or something. And next time he came, he was like, oh, do you know where my little sheriff badge is? And I was just like, oh my God, I threw it out. I like panicked. And I was like, Tova, no, man up. And I was like, oh, Aiden, I actually got rid of that. I saw it on the floor and I thought it was garbage. And he was like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, we have a bunch of toys. It makes sense that we have to get rid of some sometimes. And I was like, yeah, okay. But generally, like, I have this like fear of children, but I also think it's really important to normalize, like, you get new toys, we get rid of toys, and you could give them to charity, or give them to a friend that will enjoy them more than you will. And I always tell clients, like, you have to normalize it from a young age, so it's not like I'm taking your toys away. I don't think you should necessarily do it behind your children's back. I think getting them involved could be really empowering for them. But yeah, so now I have a 5-month-old of my own, so we'll see what I do.
Well, it's interesting, and I, as a parent, and especially as we were just obviously went through the holidays, right? I mean, very often, especially at the age that my kids are at, and your stepchildren are at, one of the key gifts is toys, and toys at that age take up a lot of space. And they already have toys, so there is that process of, do you purge right before the holidays, to make room for the new stuff, and what that process is. So it sounds like you're encouraging having the children be part of the process of identifying what goes.
I think it's kind of unfair for them to come home and half of their toys are missing.
Yeah.
And obviously, finding that balance, because that could be really anxiety provoking for kids, or maybe they really just don't enjoy it, but trying to get them involved. And even the other week I was like working, I think he was like 5 or something. Again, my client's kid, and they're like, oh, Jonah, work with Tova. She's going to help you get rid of some of the balls. You have too many balls. And then he had like 20 golf balls, and I was like, you could keep 8. And he was like so carefully selecting 8. Then he's like, but I also really like this. And I'm like, okay, you could keep that one also. And then like he felt great. We were all winners, because he really kept 10, but he also got rid of a bunch. And he was totally fine with it. And I said to him, I'm like, thanks so much for helping. I know that was probably really stressful for you. I felt kind of bad, but he was a trooper.
Well, but it sounds like, that process of involving them does give them ownership, and also makes them feel proud. I'm sure that they, were part of it. One of our viewers, a good friend of the YW, Natalie, is saying, that she's struggling with a lot of artwork of her kids and art projects. Do you have any tips for parents about sorting through all the, and now obviously many of those kids are not in school, but when they normally were in school and camp and after school activities, everyone comes home with something cute that they made at least once a day, and so that adds up quickly.
Yeah. Okay. I have a few thoughts on this, because I am very passionate about the subject.
Okay, good. Are you listening, Natalie? This is for you.
So overall, I think it's, you could keep 1 box worth of projects for to hand over to them when they're in their 20s or whatever it is. I really, really believe in creating like a curated collection. Because I always say to clients, I'm like, well, what do you have from when you were a kid? And they're like, oh, I actually only have a few projects. And I'm like, okay, and how does that make you feel? And they're like, it's fine. So, that's what I'm going off of, is like, I think it's really special for someone to have one box of projects from when they were a kid. I don't think you need every drawing. So overall, to keep, one box, and then you add to it every year. You could go back and revisit if it gets too full. But I know it's hard on the daily to get rid of stuff because everything feels really special. So I generally suggest to, have like a bulletin board, or maybe tape things to a wall or a fridge or the back of a cabinet or somewhere where your kid could feel like, you really appreciate their artwork. And then as they bring new stuff, to get rid of the old, and just create that rotation. And then the really special things you can put in the box. And if you feel like that's too scary and you want to cheat, you could always take pictures.
Yeah, there do seem to be a lot of services now where they encourage, the taking the photos and creating a book and all that. That overwhelms me too, though, because it's a thing to do.
I think if you have one, maybe 3 books, but just how much do we actually need?
Right.
Why are we keeping it? It always comes down to like, why?
So let me ask you something from a different perspective, which, I'm kind of on the precipice of having to do so. I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure other viewers have been in this space too. When you have a parent that moves out of their house, or because either they're going into assisted living or they've passed away or something, and you have their house full of their things, and you have a busy life, but you need to somehow deal with, all of that. And there's a lot of emotionality and memories attached to those things too, especially when the person, has passed, if that's the situation. I would think this is a great time to bring in an organizer like you to help with that type of project. But, what are your thoughts again about dealing with the emotionality and the attachment of things, especially when you've lost somebody and you're going through their stuff?
It's very, very tough. I actually, unfortunately, recently was working with a friend who lost both of her parents. And again, like a big house. They were there for 30 plus years. And it was really hard. And even for me, like, I was tripped up. I lost my mom when I was 14. And, I have moments where I'm like, I wish we owned everything, but then I'm always like, for what? Like, what do those things actually do? And in reality, we have like a few select items, and I don't even interact with them so often. And again, like I really, instead of feeling like pain and fear around that stuff and getting rid of it, I really, really believe in empowering yourself to be like, you know what? I will not feel a lesser connection just because I don't have that person's clothing or those letters. Because unfortunately, over time, these things become less and less important and special. So, trying to find the balance between really connecting to those things and what they mean, and feeling empowered by like not needing those things. And I truly, truly understand like how hard that is. And if you want to keep more to begin with, and then over the years, revisit and then revisit again and then revisit again, like I would guarantee that over time things feel less important. But I think that's a really challenging one. And I'm an organizer. I don't love stuff, but I totally can appreciate how that's painful and hard.
And so how many people, after you organize them, do you kind of do checkups on them to see if they're staying organized? I'm curious how many people, you put everything in a perfect place. How long does that last?
Yeah, I have people that I work with, on a twice a year basis, or maybe once a year for like a facelift, as I call it. Like anything else, I really don't think that like I come and I organize you and suddenly like you're organized for the rest of your life. I always say, I'm like, this is a practice. It will take years. Like I've personally been trying to eat better for probably 10 years now, and I still have pizza 3 times a week. And like, like there's something just very challenging about changing your behaviors. And this comes really naturally to me. But I think for other people, it takes a lot of work, and some people hate it. So I definitely work with people over Sometimes it's the same area over again. Sometimes it's different areas, or they move, or they have a baby, or they get married or divorced, or whatever it is, like life changes. But I do believe that when I work with people, I kind of like plant these seeds in their brains. And that's my real goal, is to, you know, kind of just like be on their shoulders. So when they're thinking about putting their clothing on the floor, at least it's like, Tova wouldn't want this. And then I think over time, like, you know, they can change, but it just doesn't happen overnight.
The process, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there a kind of a go-to tip that you have for our viewers that, you know, might be thinking about tackling some organizing this weekend?
Paper always comes to mind. I think that's something that really trips people up, specifically mail. So I always tell people, like, if you want to get organized today, like literally don't even bring junk mail into your house, because you bring the junk mail because, you know, you're not sure if it matters, and then it goes into a pile, and the pile gets bigger, and then before you know it, everything's out of control. So stop bringing junk mail into your house. That's
a good one. Yeah, those piles of mail. I wish, you know, enough trouble with the U.S. Postal Service. A lot of people, that seems to be a lot of complaints. But, you know, mail is definitely one of those things that can creep up. I would agree.
I think most mail is not important. I'm always like, what is this mail anyway? Like, I'm getting a lot of mail.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's
it tricks you. It tricks you into thinking it's important.
It does. And then you feel like, well, I should keep it for some period of time.
And then you end up getting rid of it. So if you just did it right away and bit the bullet.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. That's a really good tip, for sure. Well, you know, I will say Natalie liked your idea of a curated collection in the bulletin board. And I guess one of the questions people are asking, when people do donate things, how, you know, when they pack stuff up, what do they do with the stuff that they've packed up? There seems to be some, you know, people are mentioning different places maybe to send things off to. What do you normally do with things after people decide they don't want them anymore?
Yeah, I always encourage donating. You know, there's certain, like, Salvation Army picks up, or the veterans pick up. I definitely believe more than that, even trying to give it to someone that you know actually needs it. And there are actually, like, great resources for that on Facebook. I used to live in Brooklyn, and there was this, like, local group called Buy Nothing, where you could post something, and then, you know, if someone locally wants it, they could take it. There's also an app called Nextdoor where you could, you know, post stuff for free. Obviously, it's not necessarily going to the needy, but if it's hard to know exactly who needs something, you know, just trying to get to someone that will actually use it could be really helpful. So that definitely, I would say, is like level one. Or donate, obviously, is a good one. And then, because so much stuff ends up in landfills, to really stop acquiring. That's at, like, the depth of it, to not bringing so much into your life.
Well, our friend Lauren Turk is asking a really good question. You know, she's asking, and which is true, is that sometimes you may know someone in your life, a loved one, a friend, that really could use the help, but may not articulate, you know, may not get there on their own. So they might need a little bit of help. Do you do gift certificates? Can people buy hours and time with you to pass off?
Of course. And if Lauren's talking about herself, I can help her.
Well, I know. I happen to know, because that's how we connected with you, through Lauren. And we love Lauren, and we love the Hangout Girl and the Hangout and everything around it, that you helped her set up her store, right? Where you were.
And I'm a huge believer in what she's doing, because I love secondhand.
Yes. Yeah, I do too.
And then you get money for stuff, and you're not bringing more into the world. Like, I feel good when I shop at her store.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big supporter of all of that, for kids, for ourselves, for myself, for, you know, I do feel like there's too much in the world, and there's ways to take the stuff that you have that's new and, you know, give it a new life through something like that. And also, if you're going to acquire and have to buy something, buy it, you know.
Yeah, there's no guilt around buying secondhand.
Yeah. But that's great to know too, how you do go in and help people set up their space, you know, their retail spaces too. It doesn't just have to be a bunch of offices, retail.
Yeah.
Well, Tova, this was a great way to end the week. As I'm talking to you, I'm looking around and thinking about projects that I should probably start engaging in, and you've given us some great tips and ways to jump into them and not have it be too overwhelming. Everything from little things we can do ourselves to thinking about hiring an organizer and ways that an organizer could, be utilized in our lives. So thank you so much for
Yes, thank you.
some tips. We wish you.
Don't be hard on yourselves,
Yeah.
Little small steps.
Small steps. You heard it here, folks. Be kind to yourself, but go through the process.
Yeah.
So, and for our viewers, throughout this broadcast, we have been putting up the website and some of the social media opportunities for you to connect with Tidy Tova. We'll also be putting the links into our comments, so you can click to them and go right to connect with her. She definitely can fill you up with more ideas and some support if you want to connect with her directly. And who knows, maybe we'll have her back and talk again, because there's always more organizing to do. That's one of those projects that's never done. There's just new pieces to it as it goes on.
Even in my own life.
Yes. Well, and that's good. That makes me feel better knowing that.
Even it's not tidy. Yeah.
So to our viewers, look, it's Friday. We hope you all take some time to re-energize and disconnect and be kind to yourself. And, we look forward to spending some time with you next week. We have a wonderful array of shows and conversations to share with you then as well. And just a reminder for everyone always to consider signing up for our 21-day Racial Justice and Social Equity Challenge. There's a wonderful opportunity for you to learn about race, power, and privilege. For 21 days, you'll get a little an email with a podcast or an article or an interview. And it's very important for us all to learn and unlearn and, be able to be part of helping create a more equitable society for us. So we do encourage you to do that. And we also, any seniors in your life, please feel free to share with them about our virtual senior fitness classes for chair yoga, Zumba, Fit and Fabulous. 5 days a week, there's something for you to do. It's online through Zoom and free. You just have to go to our website and register. It's a great opportunity, especially now when people are really struggling with social isolation. It's a great way to stay connected. My 90-year-old mom has been doing the chair yoga 3 days a week. And they took a week off for the holidays, and she's been missing everything about it. So it not only has become something great for her body, but something great for her mind. So with that, we wish everyone a great weekend. Tova, thank you so much for making the time to be with us here today. And be well, everyone. See you soon.